You've heard it time and time again. The Gateron Yellow is the best budget switch. But these days, there are new contenders. So today, we'll be taking a look at the Gateron Yellow in comparison to the Matcha Greens from Akko CS, the KTT Roses, and the JWICKs from JWK. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. I'm sorry if this intro is super scuffed. I've actually already filmed the entire video, but it's hours later and I'm editing it and I realized I didn't film an intro, so hopefully this suffices. Anyways, let's do this. This isn't going to be the most in-depth Switch video you've ever watched, but I think it'll be a great primer for beginners and people who are curious about these switches, and you know, if you just want to know if you should buy these switches. So this video is sponsored by nobody, but I do have an affiliate code now, so please check them out in the description below. It is for Cubes for All. You don't get a discount, but it does give me a small kickback and I would really appreciate it. Starting off with the Gateron Yellow, these bad boys come in at 23 to 25 cents a switch. The housings, specifically for these KS3 versions, are fully nylon and they have a palm stem. The spring is 55 grams. They don't seem to have any factory lube, at least on the ones that I got, and they have a 5-pin switch. Moving on to the JWICK, these are basically just JWK linears with a slightly different stem. And uglier colors, to be honest, but they come from the exact same factory. These switches have a 50-gram spring, I think. I don't quite know. Okay, buddy, I am gonna need to stop you right there. So if you're wondering why I look like this, it's because I happen to be a nursing student and I just got off of a 12-hour shift in the ED. But as I was going to the parking lot and I checked my comments on my other video, guess what I found? Upon reading this comment, I'm gonna trust him more than I can trust myself. But apparently, the current info that I have on the JWICKs is kind of wrong. So I said that it's 50 gram and that they use the exact same housing. Wrong. They're slightly different and I'm gonna go over that right now. So here's a comment from Roland ZZJ. Jiangxiao Bai, or JW Clear, is a 37-gram entry-level switch manufactured by JWK for a Chinese vendor called JW or Yiguang. From what I can remember, they use inferior molds and or materials comparing to other JWK recolors. They are better than Gateron Yellow, though not as good as the new Gateron Pro series, in my opinion. There's my response, and again he says, yes, the Pro series was just announced in mainland China. Look, yet another budget switch. I only just heard about them and I can't find any documentation on it other than this dude. But yes, the Pro series was just announced in mainland China. 188 for 10, literally a cent more than a JWICK, I suppose. They're like Hyperglides, but by Gateron, retooled for better smoothness and includes factory lube. It's considered to be the best 1 RMB. What is that? I'll put it right here as what an RMB is. Approximately 16 cents USD. Oh, so they're cheaper than JWICKs. Oh, I've gifted a sample pack and enjoyed it. Hope vendors here in NA can stock them soon so I can use them for builds. That's frustrating, man. I shot this video like 2 weeks ago and I've edited it a million times, okay? So yes, that's why I look like this. There's a black screen here because I don't have a green screen. I'm not about to buy one for a bit. And also it's messy back there, so that's actually kind of the real reason why. But I have my opinions at the end of this video. My opinions are still the same. Even though the JWICK has a slightly different housing, and I've already talked about the slightly different stem, even despite that, my opinions, which I will go over at the end of the video, are still the same in regards to that switch and the other switches. But that being said, let's just roll the video. I believe they're a polycarb top and a nylon bottom, but I'm not too sure. They have a very light factory lube on the stem, making them a little bit smoother stock. Also, the stem and the stem pole are slightly longer. They're not pole bottom out, but it does create a slightly different sound profile than other JWKs, and it's a 5-pin switch. Moving on, we have the KTT Roses. These are fairly new. They come in at 27 cents a switch. I get them specifically from Dankebs. The materials seem to be unknown, but people believe that it's a polycarb top and a palm bottom. So the KTT Roses are available at spring weights of 60 gram, 63.5 grams, and 68 grams, and they're all progressive, and today we have the 68 gram variant. They are pole bottom out. They have a clamshell / wing latch design, and they are a 3-pin switch. Now the Akko CS Matcha Greens, these come in at 22 cents a switch, and they're very similar to KTT Roses, as they are also made by KTT, but sold by Akko. The materials, again, are unknown, but we're going to make the assumption that the top is polycarb, the bottom housing is nylon, and the stem is palm. These have a 50-gram spring and are also pole bottom out, and the springs are progressive. just like the KTT Roses. They also feature the clamshell / wing latch design and are a 3-pin switch. So now we're going to look at Wobble and sound test. First off, so the board we'll be using today is a Tofu 60. It is heavily dampened with lots of foam. The motherboard is a DZ60, the hot swap version. We are going to be using a brass plate. There's no plate foam, but there is foam beneath the PCB and in the case. We're going to be using an ePBT keycap, the exact same one for each sound test. And we're also going to be putting each switch in the exact same place on the PCB. And we're doing this to maintain accuracy and consistency between each switch. So each switch will be lubed as similarly as possible. The stem will be lubed and the bottom housings will be lubed, but not the top. They will also be lubed with 205G0, and for the spring we'll be using a single drop of 105 oil. Now as for films, I did film the Gateron Yellows and the JWICKs, but that is because they could accept the films that I had on hand. I have seen people believe that the KTT Roses and the Akko CS Matcha Greens don't really need switch films, and while I do believe that they could benefit from it, I also just didn't have any films that could fit in there on hand. But I do know that you could fit the thinner TX films in there. So yeah, you might be wondering, why did I do that? I wasn't thinking. But whatever, I mean, if most people aren't going to film their KTTs, then why bother when most people are going to film their Gateron Yellows and their JWICKs? So yeah, I don't know if that works out as a good justification, but it is what I'm working with. Oh, and finally, we're gonna be putting the board on like 3 desk mats, so know that. Okay, so for Wobble, we take a look here. JWICKs, holy mother of tight. Obviously these are filmed, but my god, these are some tight boys. Now for the KTT and Akko CS Matcha Greens, both of these perform very similar. Now it might seem like they wobble a lot, but really all that wobble is mostly going to be housing wobble. The stem wobbles very little, so honestly these are doing pretty well in my opinion. Films could probably fix that, but I don't think you need them. Now Gateron Yellows. These are wobbly even with the films. Now the films help, but they're not nearly as tight as the other guys. Still very acceptable when you consider the price, but compared to the competition, they just don't match up. Now let's take a look at the sound test. Okay, so what do I think? Now before I go over my thoughts on the sound, I will talk about my thoughts on smoothness. They're all pretty dang smooth. You're not going to go wrong with any of these. However, some are better than the rest. Unsurprisingly to me, but maybe to you it might be surprising because you might not have tried the switch, the JWICKs come out on top. In my opinion, these are basically just alpaca tier smoothness and like Gateron ink smoothness. Now you might have a bad switch here or there, but for the most part, stock JWICKs win out, especially due to that factory lube. Akko CS Matcha Greens come next, very smooth. After that come the KTT Roses, which are very close, although I do have a bone to pick with these, which I'll go in just a bit. And in last place are the Gateron Yellows, which are very scratchy stock. Not bad, but they're a bit scratchy. Now filmed and lube, the tier list is basically the same. JWICKs on top, Akko CS Matcha Greens in second place, KTT Roses very close in third place, and Gateron Yellows still in last place, but they come much closer than when they were stock. Again, about those KTT Roses, I had quite a few bad switches in my batches. It was the weirdest thing. Like, when a switch is smooth, it's really smooth, but when a switch is bad, you can feel it no matter how much lube you put on there. I think it's a leaf issue, but basically out of the 40 to 50 switches that I bought from this batch, I probably had 10 to 15 that were bad, and that's not good. I don't think this is DanCube's fault. I think this is purely on the shoulders of KTT. I hope they fix this, but I also happen to have this problem in the Akko CS Matcha Greens as well, but it wasn't nearly as bad, and the bad switches weren't nearly as bad as the bad switches in the KTT Roses. So honestly, I wouldn't mind using the bad switches in the Akko CS Matcha Greens versus the KTT Roses where I nearly threw them out. Another weird thing about the KTT Roses, some of the switches have this weird grit on them. Now if you just rinse it off with some distilled water or alcohol, it's not going to be a big issue at all, but it's really weird and I've never seen this in any other switch. But again, not the worst thing, easy to fix, just thought I should let you know. Now next, we have sound depth. Unsurprisingly, the Gateron yellows come out on top, especially with that full nylon housing. They just sound really, really good, and I love that they come out on top. Next come the Akko CS Matcha Greens and the KTT Roses. They sound nearly identical. I literally could not tell the difference. Their pitch is just a tiny bit higher than the Gateron yellows, and I feel like they're not quite as full, but they still sound really, really good. Now, in last place at the highest pitch are the JWICKs, which is unsurprising in my opinion. We kind of already knew that these were going to be high pitched. I mean, they did come from the JWK factory, so no surprises. Again, not necessarily a bad thing, but personal preference reigns king, and I think a lot of people prefer a deeper pitch. So what is my personal pick for the best all-rounder in terms of value, feel, sound, smoothness, all that good stuff? For me, it's going to be the Akko CS Matcha Greens. Even though they're not as deep as the Gateron Yellow, and even though they're not as smooth as the JWICKs, they come very, very close in each category, making them a very good contender for whoever wants a budget switch. Not to mention, they're dang cheap. They're not quite as cheap as the JWICKs, but they're really, really cheap. They just take a bit to ship. And they don't take nearly as long as the JWICKs to ship because those took me like a month to get. Yeah, that was no fun. Now, genuinely, you can't go wrong with any of these switches. If you get any of them, you're gonna like them. I think my only gripe is with the KTT Roses and their failure rate, or their bad switch rate, whatever. And then also the fact that the KTT Roses and the Akko CS Matcha Greens are both 3-pin. This makes them very difficult to put them in half plate and plateless builds. I was like thinking about putting them in my Salvation, which will come in December, but because they're 3-pin, that's just gonna be a no-go. But otherwise, these are all fantastic switches. Now, that's kind of all I have for you guys. Hopefully this helps you in picking out a switch, or maybe you are thinking about getting a different switch now, apart from the Gateron Yellows. Again, none of these are bad switches. I don't think you can go wrong with these. Always remember to buy extras just in case you get a bad switch, but hopefully it helped. So tell me in the comments below, what switch do you like? Which one was your favorite? And did I misspeak? Or did I miss anything that maybe I should have put in the video? Please let me know. And maybe there's another budget switch that I might have missed. Please put that in the comments. Again, I am recording this in May. I don't know when you're going to see this, so maybe by then a new switch will have come out. I don't know. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and hope you guys have a good one. Peace.